Hello, class. My name is Tyra. I dropped my handout below, so please check that out. Today, I'm addressing a question that comes up often from skeptics, seekers, and even Christians who are trying to grow in their faith. Are there contradictions in the Bible? What you think? Are there? Do you believe there are contradictions in the Bible? Many people argue that the presence of inconsistent information through scriptures make it untrustworthy. This is one of the most common objections we hear in discussion about the Bible reliability. But here's the truth. These challenges should not damage our faith. In fact, as William Mounce argues in his book, Why I Trust the Bible, when we take time to examine these supposed contradictions, we often find that they actually strengthen our belief that God inspired these scriptures. We have to trust it. We have to trust it. So today, I'll walk you through some key responses that help us understand why these so called contradictions are often just misunderstandings. And how can we respond to them faithfully and have confidence when we respond to people about are there contradictions in the Bible? First, let's talk about context. One of the primary reasons modern readers think the Bible contradicts itself is because they are trying to interpret ancient writing through modern lens. But the Bible was written across centuries in different languages, by different authors, for different audiences. I mean, just think about how many different versions, if you was to go on your Bible app and you look at the different versions of the Bible, it's so many. And they all say different, word verses differently, but it's the exact same message. It's going to give the exact same message. So when we interpret passages within their proper historical and literacy context, many contradictions disappear. Take the Gospels, for example. I'm talking about Matthew 28, Mark 16, Luke 24, and John 20. All record the resurrection, right? But they give slightly different details. Now, some people will say that's a contradiction. But is it a contradiction? No. In my opinion, I don't think so. Each gospel writer shares the same event, but their unique perspectives and with different emphasis. Just like four people witnessing a car accident, right? And when the police come, when they're giving their report on what happened, they're going to give their account, and it may vary. It might focus on, different parts of the accident, but they're not going to contradict each other because each person saw something different. But the accident did happen, if you understand what I'm saying. So, follow-up questions, right? How do you typically respond when you encounter different accounts in scriptures? And have you ever found deeper meaning after comparing different gospel perspectives? Read Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Next, let's look at literacy genre. The Bible is not one single style of writing. It includes parables, which are stories told to teach the truth, poetry, which is emotional and metaphorical, prophetic literature, which uses vivid imagery, and historical narrative. Each genre has its own rules. So when we read poetry like a science book or treat a parable like a police report or something, confusion follows, of course. For example, Psalms 98 verse 8 says, "Let the rivers clap their hands." Now, is rivers out here clapping? Do rivers have hands? No. If we take that literally, it sounds crazy. but we know it's poetry, using metaphors to celebrate creation's joy in God. Likewise, some gospel writers organize events theologically and not in chronological order. That's not misleading, it's purposeful. It has a reason for that. Like, what kind of genre do you usually read in the Bible study? And how does knowing the genre affect your understanding of that passage? Think about it. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16 says, all scriptures is God breath and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training righteousness. God has the tea, honey. Third, let's consider the historical and cultural setting of the Bible. We live in a time where precision and documentations are everything. I mean, we expect the news report to be time stamped and verbatim. Who was there? Who was she there with? When did she leave? When did she go? How did it end? Did she make it to the hospital? We want to know every detail. But ancient writers did not operate like that. Their focus was not always on exact sequence, like in exact order, but rather on thematic truth. They might rearrange events or summarize conversations to highlight a key message. This wasn't deceptive, it was a standard practice. So expecting modern journalistic accuracy from first century authors is unfair standard. Like, what are some expectations you've brought to the Bible that may come from modern culture? Or how does knowing more about the ancient world help you trust the scriptures? Like, read Isaiah 40, verse 8. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. So, are there contradictions in the Bible? Like, what do you feel? You still feel like, it might be some contradictions. I still have a few questions. Like, literally, when you take a step back and you really read the scriptures, there's no contradictions. Not in the way the critics claim. Instead, what we see are multiple perspectives, diverse literacy forms, and historically faithful writings, all pointing to a very consistent, inspired message that never changed. God's message never changed. No matter if he worded it this way, he worded it that way, he said it this way, the message still remains the same. Understanding the context, the genre, and the writing standards of the Bible helps resolve most objections about contradictions. So I have a few reflection questions for y'all. What steps can you take to better understand the Bible in its original context? And how can you help others recognize the Bible's consistency and trustworthiness? And how does your view of God change when you consider the Bible as a divinely inspired yet humanly written book? Read Psalms 119 verses 160. The psalm of your word is true, and every one of your righteousness rules endures forever. The Bible does not shy away from scrutiny. It invites us to come closer, to explore its truth more deeply. God's word would never contradict itself. Whatever God said is the truth, and it's the way that we should follow. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this video.